I'm Jake Williams, Associate Publisher of StateScoop, and we're here with Brian Gardner, CISO for the city of Dallas, Texas. Brian, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jake. Glad to be here today.
So Brian, it's kind of an understatement to say that a lot has been thrown at CISOs in 2020. From your perspective, how has 2020 changed the CISO role?
So, Jake, to be honest, I'm not sure it has changed the CISO role completely holistically. I came from private, and with the way COVID and everything has gone on, where it's really affected is where, like in government, we tended to be really on site, on premise. But there's been a lot of companies over the years that this has been their model, is distributed workforce. And so what I think it really has done is brought government CISOs a little more in alignment with private. To be honest, is not necessarily a paradigm shift holistically, but it is a slight paradigm shift or a big paradigm shift for government. That's what I've noticed. Like when we went through this, this was no big thing to me because I came from a very distributed workforce. So I was like, okay, well, we'll just do this. It's no big deal. We'll work from home. Now I'll tell you, it's been a little bit drawn out more than it had been in private, but we're adjusting to that.
So, you kind of segued right into the next question, talking about that shift to work from home. I mean, the workforce is now so much more distributed than it was just months or half a year ago. What concepts do you believe are helping with that shift? I mean, zero trust, two-factor authentication, micro-segmentation?
So I think all of these things were already in play. I know they were in Dallas. These were all considerations we were looking at. Zero trust. We had spoken with some high-level federal agencies and what they did, and they were already moved to zero trust and multi-factor authentication. This was all things that we were already discussing because we saw, a lot of ransomware, BEC, all of those kind of things going on. So the move to multi-factor authentication was already one of those things we were working on. How do we get there? As well as micro-segmentation. The problem that I seen within Dallas is, and probably a lot of government is we were just behind. There was no big secret that there was a little bit of slowness to get to those levels. Has it expedited it? Yes. Some of it's because we found some more funding, like through CARES Act and such, that we could expedite these changes. However, there's still a lot of culture shift that has to happen. Like moving 14,000 employees to multi-factor is a big deal. It's technologically, we can do it tomorrow. Culturally, that's a big shift from people that have been with the city for years and years and years, and they're just used to putting their username and password in, and that's it. Now, things have helped, or like the banking industry has moved to that. So when you go get your bank information, they require it, and so on and so forth. So that'll help us, but really, it's a lot more of a culture shift than it is a technological problem. However, there are some challenges because, like I said, some of the infrastructure has been allowed to, deteriorate over time. So bringing that infrastructure up to the place where we can actually do these things has to happen as well. So, and now being distributed, that's a little more of a challenge because we have people everywhere. And so going to a zero trust is we don't trust anybody, but we have the problem where everybody's all over the place. So you kind of have to figure out how you're going to manage that.
And so kind of all while this shift is happening, right? Technology is obviously continuing to advance. So Internet of Things, 5G technologies continue to come online, continue to become a part of the conversation. And that obviously means more technology being brought in-house to handle those improvements. With those improvements also comes supply chain concerns, and how should we collectively, we being the entire public sector cybersecurity field, how should we handle those concerns while still trying to make sure that we don't fall behind?
I think we have to really learn to bake security into the solution where we're headed with IoT, 5G. There's actually a lot of positives with 5G around security because you can contain it and those kind of things. So I think as we're doing a review of the technologies and bringing them on board, we really start to bake in not just not just in the technology side, but into the contractual and the procurement side to say, hey, we are at this level with security, and in order for you to do business with us, you have to be at that level of security. And that's it's a little bit of a crazy place for government because we have to have fair bidding and all of those components, but we also need to make sure that we're procuring in a secure manner, which it goes back to my private. We were doing some of this when I was in private. We were doing this stuff, so bringing into to the government is a little bit of a change. And we have some pushback. What I've noticed is we're moving towards, hey, you have to do in a security assessment. We want to understand what your security posture is, and here's the rules of engagement, and here's the rules of the road. And we do get a little pushback here and there, and so on and so forth. But I think as we start to just say, hey, this is a part of the plan, you'll see them come on board. It'll just be a part of the procurement process, and so on.
And so, I mean, as cyber threats continue to grow in sophistication, organizations are facing a persistent challenge to recruit skilled cyber professionals capable of protecting those systems against the threat of malicious actors. How do we close the gaps that exist in the nation's current cybersecurity education and training landscape?
So I think we leverage our youth in a lot of ways. So we do it. This is how we approach it here. Is I have a subset of my employees that are veteran cybersecurity people that know cybersecurity in and out. And then we leverage the youth coming out of college or even in college, and we bring them in as interns. We bring them in as lower level cybersecurity people, and we teach them. And sometimes it's going to be a little lopsided where we only have a small percentage where they're veterans, but they're always the ones with the youth. It's always where they have a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of drive to doing it. And not that veterans don't, but we tend to be a lot more cautious and risk adverse, right? So the outside of the box, that's where we really need those cybersecurity professionals, because that's how the bad guy's thinking. We need people to come in and think like the bad guy. What is this whole? We not see it as a big deal, but you turn them loose, sometimes they'll come up with the craziest ways for things to happen, and that may be a vulnerability that you had not thought about. So I think we really leverage that. And leverage people that are enthusiastic about it. I'm not saying just youth. We have people in the organization that want to come over and work on the cybersecurity team because they think it's cool, and we leverage that and say, okay, well, we'll teach you. That adage, we can't teach an old dog new tricks, is not true. We can. So we kind of head in that path, and I think really a lot of collaboration between between all cybersecurity to kind of understand is going to help educate as well, right? So the more we're collaborating and cooperating between us CISOs and like the C4, the coalition, that's a great example of, what are you doing? How are you handling this problem? We actually have those discussions on how do you handle not having enough people in cybersecurity. So those are ways I think that we approach it, and I'm enthusiastic about doing it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I certainly look forward to hearing more from you going forward. Brian, thanks for your time today, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Jake. You have a good afternoon.